All right, 2020 until 2025. I decided that I'm gonna do it on the A7 III. I've had the camera with me this whole time, but I just haven't been using it because my my strategy has been, all right, let's capture the stuff, post it. That way I make sure that it's in the public and I'm not putting it on a hard drive where it lives and then never makes it off of. So, but with the A7 III, what I'm gonna do is use this as the experiment to, one, condense my process so I'm isolating perfection syndrome and getting it out of the way by not saying, okay, we're gonna get the story perfect, and I'm just giving myself the goal of really getting 2020 to 2025 getting 2020 to 2025 not polished, but just minimum viable product. And I'm also letting this be the experiment of building a little bit to my process instead of just pointing and shooting on my phone and then uploading it directly. What I'm hoping to accomplish here is stretching those extra steps and actually seeing if I can act on them. And if you're seeing this, that means that I have been able to act on it because I'm videoing with the 7 III, A7 III, instead of my phone. So what I want to do here is just take 5 minutes and tell you about 2020 to 2025 of my life. And then that is wet. The ground is wet, folks. What happened in 2020 to 2025 is significantly what shaped my character. Of course, 2020 affected the entire world with the pandemic. In 2020, when COVID hit, I was living in Los Angeles, in West Hollywood, driving Lyft. In February, I worked a gig for Luke's Catering in Los Angeles, at which I met the founder of Amazon, Jeff Bezos. Very, very cool experience to meet such a significant person like that. Prior to that, I had also met the YouTuber Mr. Beast at this conference called Vid Summit. I also met a lot of other significant friends of mine like Stefan, who's Tech Right on YouTube, and I met Andre, who I went to the summit with there, Nick Pachunka, many influential people, but to the point and to my goal of condensing this as quickly as I can. So I was doing food delivery in Los Angeles when the pandemic hit. In March, when nobody knew what was happening, I got scared and wanted to get out of California. It didn't look good at all. So I came back here to the Okanagan, moved back in with my parents, COVID isolated for 2 weeks. During that isolation, I went for this run. Well, it was 13 kilometers long, and during that run, I blew out my knee for the first time, which really hurt. And that was just challenging to get through. Feeling that as a 25, 24-year-old. 2020, I was 25. And then when I moved back to the Okanagan, I asked John at Suffolk Landscapes if I could return back to work with them. And I did with around June. At the same time, I was going through this is when I went through the 67 steps video course that Tai Lopez has. If you don't know who Tai Lopez is, I see him as one of the primary internet fathers that I've been blessed to be able to absorb the knowledge from. And I would highly, highly recommend checking out his frameworks. Check out that 57-step video course that he's got. What it does is equip you with a balanced framework to be able to perceive the world with with many different tools and strategies that open up your mind to being able to see what you're looking at with a broader depth. It's a really highly skillful knowledge set that is still relevant for today, which I would recommend checking out. All right, I'm rabbit trailing. I wasn't even going to talk about Ty Lopez, but you're welcome, Ty. You made it into the summary. For the rest of 2020, I was wanting to make it as a drop shipper. I had met Scott Hilsey in Los Angeles in 2020, looking at being his filmographer, and that didn't pan out. And then when I left and arrived here in the Okanagan, I felt like, holy crap, if I don't make it as a drop shipper, I'm going to have to work a wage job the rest of my life. I don't have a college degree. I don't have a diploma. I don't know what the heck God's trying to make me do here with my life. And so I was trying to learn more about drop shipping. And I tested a few stores, and I did get a sale on a product that I was testing. And then I had to kill the store because it was costing me too much to do ads purchasing. So I killed the store. I was landscaping. I was depressed from the landscaping because that felt like I had left my dreams in California. And then the whole world collapsed through this pandemic. And I was back to landscaping, doing the thing that I left in order to go to California. It just felt really soul crushing. But it was a time that was teaching me. There was even worse experience in landscaping in the future, which I'll get to here. I then went on a missions trip with my uncle in August 2020 out to Russia and to the Ukraine for a couple of weeks. I believe I ended up being there for a month. And I saw these orphanages that my family's been involved with the ministries that they've founded and the kinds of lives that they've been able to influence, the food that they've been able to generate for these families that otherwise may not be able to at that time with the resourcefulness and whatnot. And it's really like being in Russia and the Ukraine at that time, holy smokes, in places that now they're blown up, like Luzern, Ukraine. I went there. I speak Russian. Я говорю по-русски. That means I speak Russian. For those of you who don't understand по-русски. Ukraine and being in Kiev. The last day I was in Russia, I went on this 20-kilometer hike all through Kiev with my friend, what was his name? Dima? I think it's Dima. And saw all of these structures that have been erected by the Russian people after this famine that happened in the Ukraine. After the USSR was disseminated and people's freedom came back. I'm going to stand in front of the camera here, in front of the lens so that the sun doesn't completely drown me out. There we go. Sun is shining on me. God is the greatest. All right. So let me get to this. In the Ukraine, I had my mind really expanded and opened up. Shout out to all my friends and family that are out there. My heart goes out to you. For those that have been lost. I personally right now, just to do a little aside on what is happening with Russia and with Ukraine, I personally believe people's lives and their livelihood, it doesn't need to be at stake and in question. I think peace is the highest currency. Instead of warfare and threatening and occupying land, I think the war is fruitless. I think that it goes nowhere, and that it's a higher form of consciousness to be able to have disagreements and then to communicate those with one another and to find common ground despite the disagreements. I think the war must stop. I think that the wrongs that are done, which put people's lives at stake, those must stop. And higher ways of thinking that instill peace, those are the kinds of things that should happen. That's what I have to say about that, to get my diplomatic side out a little bit. Let's continue on my summary, 2021 through 2024. This is the part of the origin story, my origin story, that is probably the most deeply affected my personality and my way of seeing what true courage is. 2021 through 2024 has taught me what it means to go through a dark night of the soul. And so let me tell you briefly what happened there, because this, again, minimum viable product. This is just my quick overview. If you want to hear more about the details of these things, it is published somewhere. But for the sake of myself simply being able to begin my process of documenting this, I'm telling you a kind of table of contents version. So thank you very much for bearing with me and for paying attention and hearing this. I get back from the Ukraine in 2020, and during that time, I believe I stopped landscaping prior to the Ukraine. So I quit, and that's the last I worked with Suffolk Landscapes. And then when I got back 3 weeks after the Ukraine, I think I wanted dropshipping to happen again. It's a little fuzzy what happened at the end of 2020. I may have just been super involved in paying attention to what was happening with the pandemic and what is going on in the world. It's a little fuzzy moving towards Christmas time in 2020, what exactly I was paying most of my time and attention to. I decided for income that I would just drive Skip the Dishes, a food delivery service that's available in British Columbia, and continue learning what I was with the Ty Lopez courses that are available, seeing if I could expand myself into entrepreneurship. But I was still heavily drinking alcohol at the time and going out binge drinking with my late friend Sasha, who was going through a divorce at the time, and probably his son was just born around that time, Ellis. So 2021, in summary, like, I'm just going to summarize through this. Let's go. We're flipping the switch and going from rabbit trail to, we're going through what happened. 2021, I'm living at my parents'. I was driving food delivery with Skip the Dishes. That's when I met Chris Buck. Love you, Chris. This is when I met Chris Buck, the country singer. Check his music out, Chris Buck Band. He's got a gold single called That's When You Know, who Jeff Johnson is the producer and co-writer on. That's when you know. I met Chris Buck during 2021 through Jeff, and I did some video work for him in the studio that I helped build in 2017. And then 2021 in the summer, I was hanging out with some people who were fun to spend time with, but who encouraged my drinking habits and didn't have entrepreneurial interests as much. They simply made me feel good to hang around. And that wasn't the best for my character. I wasn't doing drugs at that time, but like, my habit system was to simply find people who would make myself feel good. And that's not what I would encourage you to look for in people. What I would encourage you to look for in people is those people who are real, true friends who, when they see what you're going through, they're going to be honest about calling you on the things because they can see a higher, stronger, wiser version of yourself. And they encourage that version. That's somebody that Chris Buck is like. And that's what I really find valuable in the people that I've decided now to surround in my circle. But regrouping back to 2021, I've got a lot to go here, and I said this is a summary, so holy smokes, God, please help me. Thank you. Whew, so, the end of 2021, it was one of the hottest summers to that date that we had. I remember my computer was crapping when I was crapping out when I was trying to edit Chris Buck's live stream videos. I get a text from Chris asking if I want to go on a road trip with him. He needed to deliver a car from here in BC down to Nashville for his friend. It was a car that was getting donated to his friend, and they just needed to transport it from point A to point B. So I ended up going on this road trip with Chris, and we drove down the highway through Oregon, through California, had some incredible nights, incredible days talking and communicating different experiences in life. That was the first time I got to go to Las Vegas. Kind of ironic considering I lived from like 4 hours away from Las Vegas when I was in California, but Chris Buck and I went through Las Vegas we stayed there for 2 nights. We met 2 of his friends who were just living there at that time because COVID was still uncertain, and so they were living in the casinos, making money from it. They found the system out somehow. We stayed in the MGM Grand on the 15th floor and just, saw how overstimulating Vegas was. That was an experience. Then forwards with Chris Buck, we went and drove all the way to Nashville. Those nights kind of got long. As soon as the sun would set, it would be difficult to see on the road, so we'd be trying to book a hotel and trying to get to sleep ASAP. It's like challenging to see after you're staring at the road for so long. And then we got to Nashville, and Chris Buck showed me around that beautiful town, introduced me to some fantastic people, and I loved it. I truly loved seeing Nashville. Then I booked a flight, drove back to Seattle where my car was, and ended up back in the Okanagan, again, at my parents' house. And then my dad was, at the time, going to Mexico, and he invited me to go with him. There was so much lockdown shenanigan stuff happening at the end of 2021. So I ended up spending the last quarter of 2021 and the first quarter of 2022 with my dad in Mexico. Malaki, San Patricio. Beautiful area. Drinking habits were a little excessive at that time. Again. One common thing that I've seen in my history is an overage and a lack of moderation with alcohol. Something that I've now learned from. 2024 taught me the most difficult lessons. I'm just gonna check the timer on my camera here, make sure that we're recording and see where we're at. That's good. So we're at 19 minutes. I'm gonna restart the next video. All right. Good. So, how's my butt look? It feels like, I've been working out, you guys, for like five-ish months. And like, that feels like I can feel the ridges on my butt. I got some freaking fresh apples back there. I'm proud of myself. Woo! Okay. Restarted the video. Now I'm going to really get through 2022 through 2024, and I'm going to try to do this as quickly as possible, which I'm feeling like may be impossible, because this is This is the time period that I was born in. I, me, Epicworld, the true courage that I've got now, did not come from 2015 through 2020 or 2020 through 2021. It's all foundational and important stuff, but as I told one of my friends when I was beginning to practice telling my story, the real brood of the stuff that has happened to me was 2022 through 2025. So let's get into it. Minimum viable product. Woo. So I'm in Mexico with my dad, 2022. Just drinking alcohol, tons. Learning how to skimboard and surf, and I hope that I'm even in like the lens. I don't know if I am. Feels good again. Okay, sorry. So I'm not sorry. I'm just sort of like, I keep doing that. Welcome to the inside of my mind. Like I don't see one, but I am squirreling so hard out here in the forest. Okay, check it out. I think I'm probably just like, I'm getting hungry and I'm getting antsy, and I feel like I've been at this for so long. And maybe it's just my energy wanting to get out, getting this done right. So again, we're just going through it. What happened in 2022 is this. I ended up returning from Mexico. I keep like overthinking this. I literally just need to read what I've typed out here. But I just want to tell you what I'm overthinking. I'm reading about this and it says 2022, British Columbia. Then I go to San Jose, California. Then I have a mental health crisis. I was living at my parents' during that year. I also end up couch surfing with friends. That's the year I began studying web development with Code Academy and further. I keep psyching myself out by not looking at the notes and thinking about further details, like how when I returned from Mexico, within a few days, I'm just looking around for animals or bears. We're good. Within a few days of returning from Mexico, I went out drinking with my friend Sasha, and I was using modafinil, which is a nootropic stimulant that keeps you awake, that must not be mixed with alcohol. It does not mix with alcohol. It gives you these gaps in consciousness where you'll be in a certain area, and then if you've been drinking alcohol, you lapse consciousness not in a drunken way where it's like you're slurred and stuff and you're somewhat there. No, it's like almost like time jumping. You go from here to there, and that's a whole different conversation when it comes to timeline jumps and quantum mechanics. Like, we're not going there yet. But anyways, I keep thinking about these additional parts of the story that I want to interject and bring you in on. I want to get the minimum viable product. So directors in mind, directors here. I'm just going to read it out, let you know, and then we're going to have more in-depth versions. And that more in-depth version, I feel like will really help if it's written out like a book. So I just read it out. That's what's going to happen. Okay. So, 2022, I come back from Mexico. There was a bunch of shenanigans that were reckless, that worried my parents that I did in Mexico. But I connected with my best friend, Chris Birch. You're watching this get filmed on his camera, the A7 III. We had some fun, incredibly fun times in Mexico. I also met my friend Lucy at that time. And then what happened through 2022 is the most significant stuff that occurred. I get back from Mexico. And I'm communicating with this person who's a tech founder down in Silicon Valley through Instagram. I've been talking with this friend of mine, Renan. I'm gonna name him. You get your name in my story, Renan. I'm talking with them through Instagram. And at the time, it's April 2022. I don't have a job that I'm figuring I'm gonna work. Thinking maybe I'll go to skip the dishes for income. Well, as I'm learning coding through Code Academy, I had this instance where I crashed my friend Sasha's car because we were drinking and I was using modafinil, and then I mixed it with alcohol. I end up getting asked by Sasha if I can drive when we're drunk at a cactus club. I should not have driven. I end up driving. Then I end up having a lapse of consciousness while driving, which causes the car to crash. And then the front passenger headlight is like completely totaled. I screenshot the picture of it. In the long form, all of this stuff I've got captured documentation with videos and photos of. So that car accident happened, and I was not sure how to handle it. We got the car home. That night, my friend Sasha had a lapse on his substance use and went and picked up cocaine and then used that the next day. My mom was freaking out because this wrecked car is in the front driveway. Rightfully to be freaked out. What the heck happened, boys, right? Well, that occurred, and then trying to figure out how to bring all that grounded down and whatnot, like, it was sort of just a sign that from the universe that my reckless habits are out of control. I can look back on that and say, yeah, that was so much of the grace of God that I am alive. Unfortunately, Sasha's not alive anymore. He passed in 2023 during my most difficult point. Let me get to that. Let me tell you what happened in between and why that was the most difficult point. So we crashed Sasha's car. I'm trying to just find out how to deal with that. And then I get a message from my tech founder friend, Renan, that he is offering me an opportunity to invest in his company, Intelligence for Good. Cybersecurity company that caters to creators and being able to keep all of their online digital assets safe. Bitcoin, Ethereum, PayPal. What he envisioned is that because of Web3 technology, we have a huge deficit of availability for simple wallet connectivity with digital platforms, like say Instagram or Amazon or any other online platform, even a restaurant, for instance, that is offering to have somebody order their food using a food delivery service. That restaurant may want to receive Bitcoin instead of just fiat. And so the idea of Intelligence for Good, this company, is that it'd be a downloadable platform. I'm laughing because if you end up developing this, you're a tech developer watching this, and then you end up actually scaling this, all I request is that you give me 5% of your revenue in perpetuity or shares in the company. All right, Epicworld. Signed and sealed. My friend Renan ends up giving me this opportunity to invest. I was also using modafinil at that time to focus. Now, again, you can do your research on this. I'm not condoning anything. This is like my minimum viable product story. And holy shit, I just need to get through it. Let me check the timer real quick in case I'm going on for 5 hours. It's 10 minutes already. I said I said I would get through 2020 to 2025 quickly, and we're already 30 minutes in, so let me just get through it. I'm just going to pump dump this out. Rena gives me an opportunity to invest in Intelligence for Good. I end up taking that as a huge sign from the universe. This is it. This is an angel investment. This is like the seed round of a company that I can invest in. It's huge. Like, I get this right. If it goes 40x, then I take my $1,000, I turn that into $40,000. Wait, if I have, say, $50,000, and then I 10x that, that is going to be, what, $500,000. If I 50x that, that's going to be $5 million. My mind starts doing the math. I start looking at my credit card. I end up loaning out. First, I sent him $1,000 just to invest. Then, a few days later, I send $3,000, $4,000. And then I start, and at the same time, I hear about VCon, the Genesis VCon down in Minneapolis. My friend David tells me about it. I end up telling him, don't worry about, like, the border was having difficulties with people traveling because of the vax passes and stuff. I was like, oh, yo, maybe we'll go together. I end up going to VCon. I end up going to VCon with David and meeting Gary V, meeting a bunch of you incredible people on the VCon Genesis floor, at the same, and having invested in this company, believing too, like, yo, this is gonna go to the moon, and having all the reason that to believe that it is going to the moon. And then I was also like having this little fling relationship affair with a girl that I truly like loved from high school, right out of high school, sorry, not from high school, right out of high school, this girl that I always wished something would happen with. Well, 9 years later, it was happening, and I was just through the moon, ecstatic, euphoric, and everything. Then I was living at her place in Vancouver for about a month, and then with the Intelligence for Good investment, I ended up texting Rena and saying, yo, let me come and meet you and be there for the closing of the company, for the closing, because he was telling me that the company was bought by somebody, that a big tech company in New York had bought Intelligence for Good, and the investment had 40x'd, okay? And what I had done was put my money in, which was on credit card and loan. I also got some friends' money into the investment. In total, there was 35 grand invested into the company. And he told me, yo, as soon as the paperwork's finalized, this thing is 39x'd. Do the math. Millions of dollars. Well, like 1 million point something. I end up going to San Jose. I'm just gonna, I'm gonna keep this good pace going, but I'm gonna calm down my pace a little bit. Actually, fuck it. No, like, I'm Epicworld. I can do whatever I want, baby. I end up going to San Jose. I fly down there. The first night, I'm waiting to hear from Renan. At this time, I have no access to no capital. I have all my credit cards maxed. I have a $10,000 loan taken out at 40% interest on top of that. And little do I know, I'm beginning to experience mania. That's something I find out later in 2022. But at that time, I was experiencing mania because I was having a lack of sleep. I had been microdosing MDMA for about a month, which is ecstasy. And then I was also using modafinil as a stimulant to stay awake. I thought at the time it would just keep my mind clear, keep me alert, and help me to have better cognition. I fly to San Jose. The first day I'm there, I haven't slept in probably a day and a half, not really thinking straight. I'm trying to hear from Rena, but I don't hear from him. So at this time, I'm like delusional on the law of attraction. Boy, girl, like, God's got me, everything's working out. And synchronicities are happening like one after another, and everything's just planned out. So I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to worry about it. Checking for bears and cougars, right? So I'm not hearing from Rena that first day, but I have like $20 on me. That's all I've got. So I end up thinking, you know what, I'm just going to hear from him when I need to hear from him. And backing up out of the story again, if you want to hear the full details of this, let me know in the comments. Let me know. That's really what I need here, because I need to know what parts of the story need more resonance and detail to them. What ends up happening in San Jose, I meet Renan, stay with him in this apartment for a few weeks. I start experiencing mania, seeing that I'm a chosen one of God, and God's really just put me on this planet and finally exited me out of the matrix. I started seeing that 0010110 on social media, and at the time the CERN machine was getting activated, so there was all this information about like parallel realities opening up and the CERN experimentation, all of that, like finding out about the God particle in quantum physics, and just all this stuff that was causing me to go more than just delusional, but into a state of manic psychosis. I believe that, you know what, like I just made millions off this investment. I'm just waiting for this deal to close. As soon as Renan hears from that company and it works out, then we're good. And so I was delusional to anything anyone was telling me. Like, I made it, man. I fucking made it. I made it. Nobody needs to, like, I don't care what anybody says, because I took the risk, and now God is allowing me to elevate to where God has put me to be. So what happened? Long story short, one night I can't get back in the apartment. Renan's roommate, something was going on between them. I was locked out of the apartment. And I was starting to like have weird delusion. I didn't have the thought to like reach out to somebody. Let me check the timer real quick. All right. So I'm experiencing kind of delusion where I'm not wanting to reach out to anybody and talk with people. I didn't think that I was in a situation where I needed help. I truly didn't. I did have a few friends, like my friend David and my friend Stefan Techright. When I asked them for money the first day that I was with down in excuse me. I did have a few friends give me these warnings, like just to see if this person was being legit that I had invested with, because there continued to be a few situations where he was continuing to ask for funds, which is totally fine. I mean, from an entrepreneur standpoint, don't be afraid to ask. Always be good with asking as long as it's going to be paid back, right? Anyways, to get the story back short, I end up being on the streets of San Jose. When I tell people this part, I really just sort of gloss over it, like, yeah, I was on the streets of San Jose for a month. And guys, can I be honest, like this probably is an entire book in and of itself. That time that I was without a shelter or a place to stay, where I was in full delusion of seeing that the universe is taking care of me. I was sleeping at bus stops or train stations overnight. I was doing not the greatest things, like I was jacking liquor out of stores because my alcohol intake problem was getting to me at that time. I was acting on this idea, though, like, you know what? As soon as this investment comes in for me, then I'm going to be fine. I basically am the equivalent of a millionaire. It's mine. It's already mine. I already did the work of investing and believing and needing to take the leap. And at that time, I believed that all I just needed to do was continue believing in it and allow it to unfold and happen. And so I was sleeping at bus stations. I remember going to the university and dropping in on a few classes, auditing them, talking with some of the teachers and saying, like, do you know the story of how Steve Jobs, he dropped out of college and then he ended up not really being not really having a house or an apartment, but he just floated through university, and secretly he wasn't paying for classes, but he still went to them. That's kind of what I'm doing. That's what I told the teachers. I was like, I'm kind of like Steve Jobs. So funny. Like, so many entrepreneurs love saying something like that, right? I'm like Steve Jobs. Okay. Steve's like, connect the dots moving backwards. Okay. I was lost on the streets of San Jose for about a month, and I started seeing, like, the psychosis started kicking in at a rate because I was losing sleep, not having a safe place to stay, and so it seemed like everything was sort of aligned and perfect. And it seemed when I would communicate with people, if somebody was happy and they were smiley, or they would say something that resonated with something with me, it felt like that was the spirit of something good communicating through people. So it felt like when I was talking to a person and they say, oh man, you are chosen. You've got to get what you have inside of you published right now. Like, you got to do that right now. I would talk with somebody who would say something like that, and the way I'd perceive it is that is the universe, that is an angel spirit communicating through them. And on the flip side, if I would communicate with somebody who showed and demonstrated aggression, and we're like, you're the worst, whatever, they were like aggressive, I would see that as the spirit of a demon that's manifesting through them and talking to me, through the human. Another thing of that psychosis while I was on the streets in San Jose is I would see garbage as trash, and like everything was just everything that I saw was valuable. And there were times when I was just picking through the trash on the ground, or I believed that I was manifesting things right in front of me in my existence, which really is what it exactly seemed like. I mean, for instance, I would think, I want alcohol. I'm going to manifest alcohol, and I'm just walking along my path, and then within a few hours, like, I find a bottle of Hennessy that's this big, and it's half full of Hennessy. So I feel like, thank God, I'm manifesting this reality. Like, we're doing this. Epicworld. If you want a little bit more of those details, like what I'm talking about with my time being homeless on San Jose, let me know. I want to bring this in now. I want to reel in the story and tell you what happened from that point of being homeless on the streets, believing that this investment is finalizing, to now. Because I think that's what made me who I am. Just stretching it out to allow myself and my body to fully feel supported with who I am in telling this story. You guys know I'm doing the biggest possible risky thing by being public about my story. So I appreciate you listening and for respecting me for being able to be fully authentically myself. That is ultimately what I want each individual to be inspired to do from my story. Please don't be inspired to go do drugs. Please don't be inspired to go steal from stores because you don't have resources, and so that's what you're picking up from my story. Because when I was homeless, I would go to stores and do that. Please don't take those things as the signals that I'm trying to encourage in you. What I want to be encouraged from this is authentic positive, life-changing authenticity in each individual. That's what I really want from this. My highest authentic self to inspire your most authentic self. This is what happened in 2022 from August until now. I ended up getting lost on the streets of San Jose, waiting for this investment to finalize. Lost my phone that Renan had bought me. It was this really weird thing which could have been a parallel reality jump. Like before Renan got me that phone, I was just sleeping on the couch in the apartment area. Like basically couch surfing. And then I fell asleep one night typing something into my iPhone. The next morning I got woken up by the leasing agents of that apartment complex. And they were like kicking me out, like, yo, you can't be sleeping in this public area, you're couch surfing. And I couldn't find my phone anywhere. I was like, did you guys see an iPhone here? They're like, no, we didn't see it. Ended up not finding it. And then Renan ended up buying me a phone so I could communicate with people. He was trying to encourage me to reach out to my family or my friends to just go stay somewhere while we waited for this deal to close. And I was like, no, I'm staying here. I don't really care. I'm staying on the streets until we get this company finalized. So I had that phone that he bought me. It was like a Motorola or something. And then when my parents couldn't find me and they ended up flying down to San Jose to look for me, I went with my parents to the leasing agents a final time to ask if they had found that iPhone, and nobody could find it. So it really made no sense what happened to it, because where I'd fallen asleep using that iPhone was an open space to be able to look for it. Either the leasing agent stole it, or somebody found me sleeping there and that person stole it, or I jumped from one reality into another, which is completely unprovable, right? My parents end up coming to San Jose. They fly me back here to the Okanagan. Come back and I'm living at my parents' in the Okanagan. A few other significant things I'll just mention that happened when I was in San Jose is I went on a trip to Los Angeles with Renan. He was picking up a vehicle that he had just purchased. And then while in Los Angeles, I went to Church Home, the Los Angeles location that Mike and I would go to when we were living in California, which I talked about in my year's summaries, the 2018-2019 summary. And when Renan and I went to Los Angeles in 2022, the day I touched down in LAX, my mom called me and she was like, I don't know what happened, but your cat died. It looks like the breath was sucked right out of him. Later that day, I had my baptism at Church Home scheduled. I got baptized in the Saban Theater with Church Home. It's such a weird thing that my cat, Vader, died on that day that I got baptized. To me, it's a sign of metamorphosis and transformation, like the universe wanted to show me, all right, we're literally killing an old version of you. You're coming back. Epicworld. The most courageous, most authentic, and most well-rounded. My cat died on that day, so that was significant. And then, again, I'm done. I'm literally modeling Judah Smith right now. What ended up happening after that? Thank you for listening to all of this for me. This is more so a process for myself to be able to get through than for you. I'm going to check the time again. 12 minutes. We're going to do this. Okay. I'm going to get through the rest of 2022, 23, 24, and then 25 in 3 minutes. So I get back from San Jose. My parents saved me. Let me just go like this. Let me go like this. Squat down. This is probably like ADD on display. Things went south with the investment, resulted in me living delusionally in San Jose streets for a month. My parents returned me to British Columbia, living at their place. And then I got evaluated and checked into psychiatric care. I was in a state of mania and delusion. January 2023, I end up getting ghosted by Renan, and that's when I started realizing that $30,000 I'd invested, which is on interest, I'm gonna need to pay back. And my mania quickly reversed into a depression because I was realizing that the money's not coming back and I can't communicate with Renan anymore. He's not responding to my text. He was responding to texts and whatnot, but I didn't have a car because when I had returned from San Jose in that state of mania, I ended up crashing my car at that time. And then in 2023, I was like, fuck. I gotta pay this money back. In 4 minutes, I gotta get through this. Come on. So, I end up breaking down over the phone one night to my parents because I was defeated and feeling the overwhelm. I was starting to lose sleep and the anxiety's kicking in. I'm like, I don't think that this investment deal is happening the way that I believed it would. I was getting so lost at that time too with the concept of infinite realities, probabilities and all that. My parents were in Mexico. My dad ended up buying that $30,000 debt off of me because he had money for a house he was going to build, stored in a bank account. So he said, I'm going to take the debt from you. That way you don't have interest. And then I was able to get a job at a lumber mill, Coldstream Lumber. Great people that I worked with, but I was depressed as fuck, man. After a month, I was like, got another job with a landscaping company, Odyssey Landscapes. I worked in landscaping all through 2023, but every single day my soul was dead. On the second day of landscaping in March, when I got back home from work, I was not only feeling just distraught, but I found out that my friend Sasha was dead. And like, it destroyed any part of me that was still having zest for life and hope and goodness. Like, that was it. I'm gonna really quickly check the timer again because I said it was 4 minutes, but it's probably not. So it's not. Okay, so yeah. Epicworld, the longest rabbit trail in history, man. Frick, okay. I was getting emotional there. Rightfully so. Isn't this nice? Yeah. So, so my best friend dies. And I just remember that day. Like, this is a person that I grew up really only, like, the only person who seemed to understand me at that core level. This is person who taught me how to do my first backflip when I was 15. This is the person who was there when I went through my first heartbreak and there was confusion at home. I packed my bags and went and stayed at his place for a week. Sasha was a super intuitive person, and when I heard that he was gone, like, it was, I don't know, it's almost like another part of my soul was inside of him, and having that die in another way, just like my cat dying on the day that I was baptized. When Sasha died during my pivot from realizing this investment is demolished and I got to pay the money back, having him die the second day that I was working to pay the investment money back, that killed me. That just was a spear into the heart, emotionally. Like, holy shit, man. That was, to have that happen amidst the investment loss. It felt like God hates me. Not in the full sense of God hates me, Obviously, if you get what I'm saying, you get what I'm saying, but my best friend dies when I've got 30 grand to still make through the year, and it's destroyed. That was... It still makes me cry, and there will be many tears still shed for that. I end up growing a beard all through 2023. I was working landscaping with Odyssey Landscapes and doing a 10-hour days, 4-day schedule with Wade, Kevin, Lisa, Ben. An incredible team that I, at the time, because of my depression, I wasn't able to fully That's an eagle, folks. That's so cool. That's a bald eagle. Gave me a startling because of the place I'm in. I'm in the woods, so thank you for that reminder, spirit, or angels, or God, or like in the spirit of the book, The Alchemist. To Cousins Bay Woods, thank you for sending that eagle my way. Rest in peace, Sasha. Hear the birds are chirping now. I don't know if you can hear them. Still alive. Just in a new dimension. That's what Sasha is. Okay, thank you. So we're just gonna finalize this. What ended up happening is I grow a beard through 2023, lose my best friend, learn some incredible ways of being able to do development with landscaping, with hardscapes, with building walls. Wade Miller, you are an incredible teacher. He's an incredibly testosterone-filled individual. These pants are sponsored by Odyssey Landscapes. At the end of the season, they bought these for me. We got to do landscaping here in town for Kevin, the founder of Carson Air, and a bunch of other amazing projects. that job allowed me to pay off my debt that year. I still didn't, it being, needing to go through that year though, it did something to me that I didn't realize would happen. Just like going into mania was something I didn't know was something that could happen. And I didn't know how to identify at the time. Going through depression did something to me that I didn't know could happen. And when I had all the money paid off, the person that I was internally, it didn't just bounce back. Like once I hit that net zero, I was still underwater, depressed. Okay, I'm hearing funny noises, so what I'll do is really wrap this up. In 2024, I ended up going to Mexico again after finishing landscaping, living in Mexico, and meet my friend Chris again. We do a bunch of partying and drinking and stuff in Mexico. 5 months down there. We end up going on one of the biggest epic trips of my life, sailing down with our friend Josh and Cece, and we stopped in Zihuatanejo and Ixtapa and meeting an entire community of just extravagant, beautiful, wonderful people. We end up scaling to a point of networking where I was asked to judge this pageant that they have, a 15,000 person parade. I was one of the 7 or 8 judges judging this parade in Zihuatanejo for their carnival. It was just wild, you know. Then after that, I mean, it kind of fled me back into mania. I ended up moving to Calgary with Chris. And at this point, this is when I started really experimenting more with drugs. I was microdosing MDMA again, and Chris and I wanted to build a video company, Bamboo Media, but my habit system did not have the ability to do that yet. Realize I'm being loud in a good way, but that might cause curiosity from animals. So what happened because of those bad habits is I ended up losing control of my moderation with alcohol. I was using nicotine every day. And I'm getting kind of sketched out in my head thinking about if there's going to be like a freaking animal that just bounces out of the woods. Alright, so my habit systems got the best of me. Negative habits were developed. And Boots and Boats, my friend Chris Buck ran an event here in the Okanagan called Boots and Boats the first time. And then Chris Birch and I, we did the video for it, but at the time I was microdosing MDMA, I was drinking off the hook, and Chris and I ended up having another car wreck during that weekend, and I didn't really think anything of it, like, oh, this is significant in a way of like, God's trying to show you bad habits. I didn't think of that at the time. Well, we end up going back to Calgary, and I'm just kind of testing around with cocaine at the time, you know. I had tried it for the first time in 2022 with my friend Sasha before he died. And then when I'm living in Calgary, experimenting with it a little bit again. I end up having cocaine one morning. You'll hear this story more in depth, but let me just finalize it so that I can finish this in under 60 seconds and I can get out of the bear's way. I don't have any bear spray, so that's why I'm so sketched out. So I have an overstimulation event on the way down to VCon. I won free tickets to Gary V's VCon in Los Angeles 2024. And then through a insane series of events during which I was working with Moldavite at the time. Yeah, I'm hearing something over there. I'm gonna pause this and I'm gonna finish this by the car. Sweet. Where was I? Getting freaked out about bears. Ty Lopez says in his 67 course, nature always laughs last.